Hi, Jodie here. I'm just in London, obviously, at the London Eye, and just taking a little stroll through the Jubilee Gardens, and thought I would do a little video out and about somewhere a bit different as I'm on a trip down to London. The thing I want to talk about is research in Edtech, and I'm seeing a lot of claims around trials and things in Edtech. I think it's a good thing. I think the fact that people are pushing for research-backed, evidence-backed, trialed products is a good thing overall. However, I think we need to think about kind of some of the validity behind some of the claims, in the sense of what people are looking for and the pushes that people might be doing to get a certain type of trial outcome, i.e. particularly where it's focused solely on looking at pupil outcomes. I think anyone who works in EdTech and any teacher who's worked with EdTech knows that the EdTech itself doesn't magically create pupil outcomes. There's teachers involved, there's even within the product itself, there's often teachers, even something like Oak National, which is obviously delivering vast numbers of lessons to millions of children. There are still teachers at the heart of that. The content is what is making that difference, not the tech itself. So we need to be wary to separate the tech from the claims around pupil outcomes, just in that common sense way, first of all, of understanding that the tech itself on its own is very rarely doing something pupil outcomes wise solely just because it's technology or because it's certain technology. There's another side of research, which is obviously what feeds into the technology product being developed, and there's lots of great studies going on. There's lots that have been used from past studies that are kind of bigger studies around kind of just even how the brain works, how we learn, all those kind of big topics, and kind of trying to funnel down into how to make that product well. So if you're making a maths game and you're looking at how the brain recognises and deals with reward and challenge, for example, that can help you to make a more engaging game that is more likely to challenge at the right level and push pupils on, and all those kind of things. So there's great research there that feeds into the product itself. But when we're looking at product testing and the individual branded products being tested in schools, what I think we need to bear in mind with EdTech particularly is that when EdTech goes into school and is successful as a standalone product, that is a school that already has really good tech infrastructure. There's somebody with a vision. It's usually been running for a few years. They've got Wi-Fi that works, broadband that works. They've got devices to use. The children are used to those devices. So therefore, if you say use this piece of technology and the pupils are using it and they've got that confidence technology, and equally the staff, really importantly, have had good quality CPD that gets them confident in technology, because that's often the bit that's left out where technology goes wrong in schools, then generally that technology will work. If it's been picked for a purpose, if someone said, right, we need a maths, we need something for maths, and we've picked this particular product because it does the things we need in maths, whether that's to send it for homework, to use it as part of lessons, whatever that is. If people have picked something specifically because they think it will solve a problem, if they've got if reading is an issue and they want to find a product that gives them ebooks to use at home, and then they trial giving that to certain classes and test whether their reading ability goes up more than the classes that wasn't given to. These are small scale trials that are done quite frequently, but we should assume that there is also a good tech infrastructure that has been running for long enough for it to be embedded enough that this sudden chucking technology at it works. It is going to succeed. If you put that same technology in a school that doesn't have good infrastructure, that doesn't have good broadband because they're in the middle of nowhere and they can't even get good broadband, or there's been no investment in technology, there's no devices, the parents have no devices, that is lessened now with COVID, meaning that the government gave out lots of devices, but there's still not necessarily good Wi-Fi, there's still not necessarily good broadband, there's still not necessarily the ability to use that technology well and use it educationally. So I think we need to bear in mind when we think about when a trial has gone well with EdTech, that means it's gone into a school, because it's usually self-selecting, a school that is happy to try something, and therefore they're usually in a position that means their infrastructure and their tech response, their tech confidence is high enough that that product can work, and they're usually picking something they need. It's not usually they're taking a maths product to get rid of another maths product, although in those cases it can have an instant effect of if the staff believe more in a product, because that's another element. If the teachers believe in the product, they are more likely to push that and make it work. But the other thing is that if we're only focusing on pupil outcomes, then we miss the potential the technology has way outside that, but that has an indirect knock-on on pupil outcomes. But we can't say that it gives good pupil outcomes. For example, parental communication apps. They're not going to make a child better at maths just by being a parental communication app. But if that parental communication is then used well by the school and the parents, and they get engaged, and they're more engaged in their child's education and their communication and relationship with the school, then perhaps there is a knock-on effect later on, that then when you do send some homework, maths homework via the app, or some extra notes or some help for the parents of how to support their child at home, they're more likely to take it on board, and therefore there's an indirect knock-on effect. Equally, a great assessment system which teachers are using well, and I say that advisedly. I know, there's all sorts of other things that go around kind of high stakes accountability around assessment, but an assessment system where the culture is such, and again, the culture is really important, even more so than the technology in a lot of cases. If the culture is such that the teachers are using it in a way that helps them to impact on certain groups and see who's falling behind, and build that into their teaching and learning and their planning, and also can save them time, versus if they're doing loads of things on paper that can now be done via technology, then in some cases that's going to save a lot of time, which has an indirect impact on student outcomes, just because the teacher's happier, more rested, more knowledgeable about what's there, because the system giving them a quick chart to show them exactly who needs help, as opposed to them trying to drift through different paper systems and so on. So there's lots of things that technology can do. Also, another thing that was a huge benefit when my school years ago brought in a learning platform was, within the first couple of years, what we noticed was we saved about £3,000 in printing, in ink, paper, photocopier costs and things, because we put more and more things on the learning platform. And that's another cost that will have an indirect impact, because if that £3,000 can go to extra tutoring, extra resources, extra maths manipulatives, all those other resources and things that often we can't afford, then that's going to have an indirect impact. So to sum up, I think the fact that we're pushing and asking for research is great. The fact that we're looking for evidence is great. The fact that we're looking for products to be trialled is great. But we need to still put context around that, around the getting a level playing field. We need a level playing field of schools where everyone has got good, solid tech infrastructure in place, in order to then pick and choose from all the myriad of products out there to help them with particular curriculum linked, or financially linked, or assessment linked, or parental communication linked improvements that they want to make in the school or at home. The tech should be an enabler, a tool for that, but only once the infrastructure is done. And it takes time, and realistically it takes a few years to get from nothing to the point where all your staff and all your pupils are ready to just take something on and for it to work. If you're not in that position, and you're just taking a piece of tech because something said that it might give you an extra month's progress in maths or whatever, which might be absolutely valid on the basis that your technology works and you've got devices and you've got good broadband and everything else. So make sure those questions are part of when you're looking for these products, and not just that the trial showed something for some schools. That's great, but have you got the infrastructure needed to make it work? And have you got the culture, have you got the time to spend with CPD to make sure it works? Because the tech itself can never ever be this magic out of the box solution to everything. I think most people know that, but I think it's worth kind of specifying that with the big push that we've got at the moment on research and evidence-backed products, that we also consider the context around it and try and work towards something that helps us on a bigger scale. And I think what we're looking at is needing to get lots and lots of anecdotes together to the level of anecdata, in the sense that we've got so many that we understand where they're all coming from. And if we had some sort of, ideally government backed, so it's not backed by individual commercials with an interest, individual kind of commercial companies, but a government backed system that allowed us to upload anecdotes from school to school that say what works, but what else they're using it with, not just the product on its own. What do you use it with? How long did it take you to get to the point where your technology was ready for that? What did you put in place in year 1 of your technology journey, then year 2, then year 3, and at what point did these products come in? And I think we need to be more honest about that journey and how difficult it is, but how worthwhile it is. Like, I know I've seen it time and time again. If you can make that journey, it is so worthwhile, because then you can pick any product, pick all these things. You can save teachers time, you can save teachers trouble, but that's not going to happen in the first year. It will start to happen in the second year, but only minor, and then third year onwards it starts to get really easy, and it really pays off. But we need to look at that infrastructure. We need to gather anecdotes from people so that a school who's starting in year one can look at examples of what people have done, not just one product they've bought, but all the different myriad of products, and which ones worked, didn't work, what did they change in year one, then what in year two, then what in year three. And if we can build a database of that level of information, what kind of school are you, what size are you, where are you in the country, are you in a village or a city, all these, they're just practical things. It's realistic, practical elements to this ideal. And I've seen the ideal. I see it all the time. These schools that are doing fantastic work with technology. But I also see schools that you could give them all the apps in the world, but they just don't have the basics of the broadband and the devices and the time for the teachers to make that work. And we need to be pushing for that alongside, and perhaps before in some cases, the actual evidence of individual products. So that's it, bit of a long video today. Hope it was interesting. Do message me, happy to talk further. It's something I'm very passionate about. I want to try and get to the point that we do get this database of anecdotes, that we start building a realistic look at what a journey of technology looks like before we just start plucking products out of the air and testing those. Not to say that I think those trials are useless. I think they're great, but I think we need to see what's behind them as well. And then we've got, at least for school level information, we know at least what that school needs in order to make that work. Not just that product, but what do they have, what devices, what broadband, what settings, all the rest of it, what e-safety, what GDPR was in place, everything. We need that full bundle when we're looking at research in EdTech. It's got to be everything, in my view. So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts, and I'm off to carry on wandering down the riverside. So have a great day. Bye.